Welcome to a deep dive,
Yeah.
into the world of diabetic foot care.
Okay.
We're going to be taking a close look at the guidelines from the International Working Group on the Diabetic Foot,
Mm-hmm.
the IWGDF for short.
Right.
Now, this isn't just some, casual club.
Uh.
This is a group of over 100 experts worldwide dedicated to improving the lives of people with diabetes.
Wow.
And get this, the guidelines they created are based on 10 systematic reviews.
10.
It's a mountain of research.
Yeah.
It just makes me wonder, what were some of the most unexpected or impactful findings they unearthed in those reviews?
Well, what's really interesting is the sheer depth and breadth of the research they considered.
Okay.
They didn't just focus on the obvious, like, wound care.
Uh-huh.
They delved into everything from the biomechanics of the diabetic foot to the psychosocial impact of foot complications.
Wow.
For example, one surprising finding was the significant role that footwear plays in preventing ulcers.
Cool.
It's not just about offloading pressure,
Right.
but also about ensuring proper fit and materials.
So these guidelines themselves that you provided in one of our sources,
Yes.
I see they use something called the grade methodology
Yeah.
in a PICO format.
Mm-hmm.
For someone who isn't a medical researcher, can you break down how those approaches help to make the guidelines valuable for doctors in their everyday practice?
Absolutely.
Okay.
GRADE is all about making sure the recommendations are rock solid,
Okay.
backed by the best possible evidence.
Uh-huh.
It's a system for rating the quality of evidence
Okay.
and the strength of recommendations.
Right.
This helps doctors feel confident that the advice they're getting is truly reliable.
Okay.
The PICO format helps to keep things practical.
Okay.
It stands for patient, intervention, comparison, and outcome.
Mm-hmm.
By framing their research questions in this way.
Okay.
The IWGDF ensured that the guidelines directly address the specific challenges that doctors face when treating patients with diabetic foot problems.
So it's not just about, producing this huge document, but about making it usable for those on the front lines of patient care.
Exactly.
Okay.
And speaking of being on the front lines,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that stood out to me was the IWGDF's emphasis on prevention.
Okay.
They dedicate a significant portion of the guidelines to identifying risk factors
Uh-huh.
and implementing strategies to prevent foot complications from developing in the first place.
That's a refreshing approach.
Yeah.
It seems like healthcare often focuses on treating problems after they arise rather than preventing them in the first place.
Right.
I also noticed that the IWGDF is very open about potential conflicts of interest,
Mm-hmm.
which is not always the case with these types of organizations.
Right.
So why is this transparency so important?
Well,
And what concrete steps did they take to ensure that bias didn't creep into their recommendations?
transparency is absolutely crucial, especially when you're talking about guidelines that will influence medical decisions globally.
Mm-hmm.
The IWGDF went above and beyond in this area. They publicly disclosed any potential conflicts of interest from all the experts involved.
Wow.
They even went so far as to exclude authors from discussions about research they themselves were involved in.
Okay.
It's about building trust.
Right.
Doctors and patients need to know that these guidelines are based purely on science, not personal agendas.
It's reassuring to see that level of rigor.
Yeah.
That sounds like the IWGDF put a tremendous amount of effort into creating these guidelines.
They did.
Can you give us a sense of the scale of this project? How many people were involved?
Sure.
And how long did it take to put it all together?
It was a massive undertaking.
Okay.
We're talking about 10 years of full-time work,
Wow.
with contributions totaling 2 million euros.
Wow.
The team was truly global, with 50 external experts from 40 countries
Wow.
across 5 continents.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing.
All that brain power focused on one goal, improving the lives of people with diabetes.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, how does this all actually play out in a real-world setting?
Yeah.
Can you walk us through a specific example of a recommendation from these guidelines and how it would be used in practice?
One that stands out is the recommendation to use the SI-BABOS system for communicating about diabetic foot ulcers.
The SIM-based system.
Yes.
Can you tell me more about that?
It's a standardized system for classifying and describing ulcers,
Okay.
taking into account factors like size, depth, infection presence, and other key characteristics.
Mhm.
It might seem like a small thing,
Okay.
but having a shared language for describing ulcers can make a huge difference in ensuring that everyone involved in a patient's care is on the same page.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I imagine consistent communication can be critical in a field like this, where early intervention can have a significant impact on patient outcomes.
It can.
I remember reading a story
It
about...
can be the difference between a minor issue and a major complication.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Well-
We've learned about the IWGDF's meticulous methodology, their commitment to transparency, and the truly global scale of their effort.
Mm-hmm.
But we've just scratched the surface of what's contained within these guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
Let's dive deeper in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
And explore some more specific recommendations and their impact on the lives of people with diabetes.
Sounds good. You know, it's fascinating how the SIMAD system exemplifies a broader theme running throughout these guidelines.
Okay.
A focus on clear, actionable advice that can be implemented globally.
Okay.
It's not just about, high-level research.
Right.
It's about providing tools that make a real difference in everyday practice.
So in addition to the SIMBEAD system, what are some other examples of practical tools or strategies that these guidelines offer?
One that comes to mind is their approach to offloading pressure on diabetic foot ulcers. They recommend a variety of methods,
Okay.
from simple things like specialized footwear and insoles to more advanced techniques like total contact casting.
Right.
The key is to choose the method that best suits the individual patient's needs and lifestyle.
Makes sense, because a one-size-fits-all approach probably wouldn't be very effective in a complex field like this.
Definitely not.
What about wound care? I imagine there's a lot of nuance involved in treating diabetic foot ulcers.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The guidelines provide detailed guidance on wound assessment, debridement, infection control, and dressings.
Okay.
They emphasize the importance of a multidisciplinary approach involving not just doctors, but also nurses, podiatrists, and other specialists.
It sounds like a real team effort.
It is.
But with so much information packed into these guidelines, is it realistic to expect that every healthcare professional can master it all?
That's a really good point.
Okay.
The IWGDF recognizes that implementing these guidelines in full can be challenging, especially in resource-limited settings.
Right.
That's why they've developed a range of resources and tools to support implementation.
Yep.
They offer summaries, pocket guides, and even online training modules.
Wow.
They've also created materials specifically for patients and caregivers,
Okay.
empowering them to be active participants in their own care.
So it's not just a top-down approach.
Right.
They're really trying to equip everyone involved,
Exactly.
from the doctors to the patients, with the knowledge they need to make a difference.
That's the goal.
Okay.
And this commitment to accessibility is what really sets these guidelines apart. They're not meant to be a dusty tome on a shelf,
Right.
but a living, breathing resource that's constantly evolving and being adapted to different contexts.
It's amazing to think about the potential impact of these guidelines.
Yeah.
Not just on individual patients, but on healthcare systems around the world.
Right.
It just makes me wonder if this model of international collaboration and rigorous evidence-based guidance could be applied to other complex health challenges.
It's a question worth pondering.
Okay.
What if we had similar international working groups dedicated to addressing other pressing issues, like cardiovascular disease, cancer, or mental health?
Yeah.
Imagine the possibilities if we could harness the same level of global expertise and commitment to evidence-based practice across the entire spectrum of healthcare.
That's a powerful thought.
It is.
It really speaks to the potential of collective action and the importance of sharing knowledge across borders.
I agree.
But let's bring it back to the IWGDF and their focus on diabetic foot care.
Okay.
Had they seen any tangible results from their efforts? Has the widespread adoption of these guidelines actually led to better outcomes for patients?
There's growing evidence that these guidelines are making a real difference.
Okay.
Studies have shown that hospitals and clinics that implement these recommendations see reductions in amputation rates, faster healing times, and improved patient satisfaction.
Okay.
It's still early days, but the initial results are very promising.
That's encouraging to hear.
It is.
It sounds like the IWGDF is not just talking the talk,
Yay.
but walking the walk.
Exactly.
And speaking of walking, I'm curious about their recommendations on footwear.
Okay.
We touched on this briefly earlier.
Yes.
But I'd love to dig a little deeper.
Sure.
What are some key takeaways for our listeners about choosing the right shoes if they have diabetes or know someone who does?
This is an area where even small details can make a big difference.
Okay.
The guidelines stress the importance of proper fit, Shoes that are too tight or too loose can increase the risk of blisters, calluses, and ulcers.
Right.
They also recommend breathable materials to help keep feet dry and prevent fungal infections.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about support? Is
Yeah.
there a specific type of shoe or insole that people with diabetes should be looking for?
Yes, good arch support is crucial.
Okay.
They recommend shoes with firm heel counters and removable insoles so that custom orthotics can be added if necessary. They also advise against wearing high heels or shoes with pointed toes, as these can put excessive pressure on certain areas of the foot.
It sounds like there's a lot to consider.
There is.
I imagine it can be overwhelming for people with diabetes to navigate all these recommendations on their own.
Right.
Are there any resources available to help them make informed choices about footwear?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The IWGDF website has a wealth of information on footwear, including tips for choosing the right shoes and a directory of certified diabetic shoe fitters.
Wow.
They also encourage people with diabetes to consult with a podiatrist or other qualified healthcare professional for personalized advice.
That's great to know. It sounds like the IWGDF is really committed to providing comprehensive support for people with diabetes at every step of their journey.
They are.
And that brings us to another key aspect of their guidelines: education.
Right.
How do they emphasize the importance of patient education in preventing and managing diabetic foot complications?
Patient education is at the heart of their approach.
Okay.
The guidelines stress the importance of teaching people with diabetes about the risks of foot complications, how to perform daily foot checks, and what to do if they notice any problems.
Knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely.
The more people understand about their condition, the better equipped they are to take charge of their own health.
Exactly.
And the IWGDF provides a range of resources to support patient education.
Yes, they do.
Including brochures, videos, and even online courses.
That's right.
They also encourage healthcare professionals to take the time to educate their patients and to involve them in decision-making about their care.
Yeah, it's all about collaboration.
It's a collaborative approach, empowering patients to be active partners in managing their health.
Exactly.
I see that the IWGDF also addresses these psychosocial aspects of diabetic foot complications.
They do.
This is often overlooked in healthcare.
Yes, it is.
But it can have a huge impact on a person's overall well-being.
It can.
So how do these guidelines specifically address that aspect?
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
Living with a diabetic foot ulcer or undergoing an amputation can be incredibly challenging, both physically and emotionally.
Right.
The guidelines recognize this and encourage healthcare professionals to address the psychological and social needs of their patients.
That's so important.
It is.
It's a reminder that healthcare is about treating the whole person, not just the physical symptoms.
Absolutely.
What are some specific ways that the IWGDF suggests healthcare professionals can provide that psychosocial support?
They recommend providing access to counseling and support groups, addressing issues like body image and self-esteem, and involving family members and caregivers in the care process.
Okay.
They also emphasize the importance of communication and building a strong rapport with patients, creating a safe space for them to share their concerns and fears.
As we're wrapping up this part of our deep dive, I'm struck by the sheer breadth and depth of these guidelines.
Yeah, me too.
They cover everything from the science behind diabetic foot complications to the practical aspects of prevention treatment and psychosocial support.
It's really impressive.
It's a truly remarkable achievement, a testament to the dedication and expertise of the IWGDF and the global community of healthcare professionals who contributed to this work.
I agree.
And it's clear that their commitment goes beyond simply producing a document. They're actively working to ensure that these guidelines are implemented effectively around the world, making a real difference in the lives of people with diabetes.
Yeah.
But as you know, there's always more to explore.
Right.
Let's move on to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll delve into some broader implications and thought-provoking questions
Sounds good.
about the future of diabetic foot care and beyond. It's incredible to see how the IWGDF has taken such a comprehensive approach to diabetic foot care. But what I find most impressive is their commitment to continually learning and adapting. They acknowledge that these guidelines aren't set in stone, but a living document that evolves as new research emerges.
Right.
So I'm curious, what are some of the areas where they're currently focusing their research efforts?
Well,
what are the big unanswered questions in diabetic foot care that they're hoping to address?
One area of active research is personalized medicine.
Okay.
They're looking at ways to tailor treatment to the individual patient, taking into account factors like genetics, lifestyle, and other health conditions.
Okay.
Another exciting area is the development of new technologies,
Okay.
like advanced wound dressings and diagnostic tools that could revolutionize the way we approach diabetic foot care.
It's fascinating to think about the possibilities.
It is.
But as with any advancements in healthcare, there are bound to be challenges.
Sure.
What are some of the hurdles they might face in implementing these new discoveries and technologies in real-world settings?
One of the biggest challenges is ensuring equitable access to these innovations. New technologies are often expensive and may not be readily available in all parts of the world,
Right.
particularly in low-resource settings.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Another challenge is keeping up with the rapid pace of innovation. Healthcare professionals need ongoing education and training to stay abreast of the latest developments and to integrate these new tools and techniques into their practice.
It's a reminder that progress in healthcare isn't just about scientific breakthroughs,
Right.
but also about addressing issues like cost access and training.
Exactly.
I'm also curious about the role of artificial intelligence in the future of diabetic foot care.
Okay.
Do you see AI playing a significant role in prevention, diagnosis, or treatment?
Absolutely.
Okay.
AI has the potential to transform diabetic foot care in numerous ways.
Right.
Imagine algorithms that can analyze images of foot wounds to detect early signs of infection or predict the risk of amputation.
Okay, interesting.
AI could also be used to personalize treatment plans, recommending specific interventions based on a patient's individual characteristics and risk factors.
It sounds like science fiction, but it's becoming a reality right before our eyes.
It is.
But with all this talk of AI and cutting-edge technologies, it's important to remember that the human element remains essential.
Right.
No matter how sophisticated our tools become, compassionate and empathetic care will always be at the heart of effective healthcare.
I couldn't agree more.
Technology should enhance, not replace,
Right.
the human connection between healthcare professionals and their patients.
Absolutely.
Well, this deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
Yeah.
I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the complexity and importance of diabetic foot care.
Me too.
And I'm honestly inspired by the IWGDF's dedication and impact.
They're doing great work.
You provided a link to their website.
Yes.
And I know I'll be spending some time there learning more.
It's a great resource.
As we wrap up, I'm wondering if you could leave our listeners with a final thought. Something to ponder as they move forward, armed with this new knowledge about the IWGDF and their groundbreaking work.
Here's something to consider.
Okay.
The IWGDF's success demonstrates the power of collaboration, scientific rigor, and an unwavering focus on patient outcomes. Could this model be applied to other areas of healthcare?
That's a good question.
Could we see similar international working groups tackling other complex challenges, leading to better health and well-being for all?
It's a question worth asking.
It is.
And a vision worth pursuing.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you.
Likewise.
To our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the IWGDF.
Thanks, everyone.
We hope you found it insightful and engaging. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.